Pink today, pink today, today is a pink day. Hey guys, welcome to my channel. My name is DJ and we are going to talk books. Now, I'm not sure why I'm wearing pink today. I just felt like today was a pink day. I just felt like today was a pink day, you know? So of course I did not finish my TBR list for August, and September has slipped in and I'm just like, yikes. So some books that I did plan on finishing in August, I did not finish in August. I actually finished them last week, and that's okay because at least I'm reading. You know what? A lot of people don't read, so I'm going to pat this back because at least I'm doing something. So I read 4 books in August. I kind of feel like I read more, but I have 4 books to talk about that I finished in August. First book being Moon Witch Spider King. So I talked a little bit about this book in my last video when I was talking about my TBRs for August, and this is the second book in a trilogy by Marlon James, and the first book is Black Leopard, Red Wolf. If you haven't read it, you should probably do that if you like high fantasy, African, crazy, cursing, fighting. So that first book was from the point of view of Tracker. This book is from the point of view of Sogolan, who is the Moon Witch, and it follows her from being a very young child all the way to her being 300 and something years old, and her perspective on this whole journey where they are trying to save a child, kill the AC, or save the kingdom. Tons of different point of views and perspectives. This book was a bit slower than the first book, so you know, it just gave us a lot more description. There's a lot more, I feel like, nuance when it comes to Sogolan's life and who she is and who she becomes. But I definitely loved this book compared to the first one. I don't know, I can't really say that I liked either one more or less than the other one because they were just such different stories. But this book was really good. Definitely giving it a 5-star because it just dives deeper into this whole world that we are seeing with Tracker, with Sogolan, and with all the other characters that just follow on this journey, and the separate fights that everyone has to endure on this journey to craziness, and just talking about life in a magical world that is just crazy. Like, be prepared for craziness. This book is not for children. This book is for adults, and adults who can just deal with reading crazy shit. But yeah, 5 stars, loved it. The second book that I finished in August is Love in Color. This book is by Bolu Babalola. Like I said in my last video, I just feel like this book is amazing. I'm not a super like huge romance love type of guy, so like, you know, I wasn't super hype about reading it, but the more that I read the stories and the more I got into it, I will say this book was amazing. Every story had its own little world, and although the stories are fairly short, each character had their own development. Each story was very descriptive. We got to see a lot of build-up. We got a lot of plot detail. And I really think that these stories matter when it comes to love. Like, a lot of the stories ended with very good endings. I hope there is another book coming that can kind of like shine more light on these stories because they were amazing. And it just felt good to read something that wasn't like super like crazy. I read a lot of crazy books that have terrible endings. Not terrible in a way that the book is terrible, but just like, oh God, but still love them. But it's just good to read something a little more lighthearted, something to make me feel like, okay. So yeah, Love in Color was really good, loved it. Definitely suggest this book to anyone that is interested in reading something about love. So now we get to the crazy books. Okay, the third book that I read in August is Babel. Babel by R.F. Kuang. I don't want to give away any spoilers because I know that a lot of people are going to read this book. A lot of people haven't read the book, so I'm going to try and be very, like, you know, quiet on what happens in the book, but let's talk about it. So this story follows a young guy named Robin, and he is from Canton. And, he's Asian, and he is taken from his hometown by a professor who heals him from a plague that is pretty much ravaging his hometown, his land. And his family is dead, and this professor kind of like rescues him. But he takes him from his homeland all the way to Europe, to England, where he now, takes him in kind of like a son, but not a son. So this professor is just like, I've taken you from your home. You're here. You have this privilege to live in this house, and you must learn. And he's learning all these different languages, and he's becoming pretty much a translator. He knows his language, and he is honing in on that, but he's also learning Latin and Greek and a bunch of different languages so that he can, in the future, go to Oxford and study as a translator. He does extremely well. Robin Swift is a very, very smart young man, and he does achieve a spot in Oxford, and he has classmates who are also extremely smart, and they all come from extremely different backgrounds, and this has come across as a blessing and a curse, especially during this time. This book is set around the early 1800s, so for anyone who has not learned anything about history, during this time, diversity was not at the peak of societal pleasure. Most people who were in the forefront of societal pleasure would be people of a lighter skin tone. So of course we know that white people are the predominant race at this time, and it is well shown throughout this book. It is shown through interactions with people of diversity, and we're not going to get into that because read at your own risk. But yes, so Robin is at Oxford. He has these three classmates, and they're learning at this university called Babel. There's a tower, and it has about 8 floors, and each floor represents a different department for the university. And at the very top floor, they are working with silver. In this story, in this world, silver is pretty much a conduit for magic or any type of like immense energy transfer. So they use silver to inscribe words on each side. They mean the same thing in different languages, but together they produce this energy and this magic that allows the silver to do magical things. And the goal, of course, for everyone who is in Babel that is training to become a translator or however, is to become a person that works with silver so that you can have your own effect on the world, whether they use the silver to heal people or they use the silver to make trains run, or if they use the silver as something to enhance their weaponry. Many things you can do with silver, and that's everyone's goal because it seems like something very prestigious to do. And also it's magic. I mean, who doesn't want to do magic, right? The book takes a crazy turn once these students get to their 3rd, 4th year-ish, where a lot of crazy things happen that put them in a very crazy place in life where they don't know if they actually want to stay loyal to their school or if they want to join a secret society that is avidly working against the school because of conspiracies, because of things that we all know happen behind the veil of what prestige is always shown to be. There's been a lot of talk about this book where people have voiced their opinion to say that they feel this author has taken an opportunity to give her very strong opinion on racism and the history of racism. And of course, there are many people on one side that feel away, many people on other sides that feel away. I just look at the situation like this is a story, and every story isn't created for us to read it and feel like, that made me feel great. Honestly, as readers, we are here for perspective. The reason that you read these books is to learn from someone else's perspective how things went down. And maybe your perspective can be intertwined into that, and it can blossom into a new experience or a new mental arena. But however, to bash an artist because of a story that they created that is very closely related to factual history, but also just giving experience of a people that are not of your own. So like, you know, for a black person to give a lot of opinion on an Asian person's experience, in my opinion, is a little bit out of the way, just because we have totally different perspectives, totally different experiences when it pertains to racism and how racism has affected us all across the board. So I just think we need to keep an open mind when it comes to reading stories, because this is a fictional story. This did not happen. This is just out of the mind of an artist who had a story and she told it. Yeah, I just wanted to say that because I personally look at it like this is a story. When I first heard about this book, I heard that it was a fantasy, and in my mind, I'm always thinking high fantasy because I'm crazy. I always want to see like witches flying on brooms, dragons, wands, cauldrons, like bibbity bobbity boop my ass all the time. But I will say the only like magical aspect to this is the silver making. Like when they use the silver to do very minuscule things when it comes to magic. So if you are looking for a magical story, this is not it. This story is very deeply honed in onto academics. These kids are at school, they are learning different languages, and there's a lot of linguistic learning for you as well as the reader. You go through this book learning certain things that you probably never would have learned about with other languages or dialect in general. And this book just kind of gave us a very small but descriptive glimpse into what it's like to be at a school so prestigious as Oxford, how it is for someone who is totally different from the average student there to be at the school and deal with the ridicule. It's very cliche because that's just the culture, but it's put into perspective when you come from another country and you're constantly wondering like, why am I here? Why was I brought here? What's going on? But it is a privilege because this is something extremely new to me and I'm enjoying it and I appreciate it. However, I didn't choose this, so there's that cognitive dissonance, there's that tug of war with most of these children who were taken from their land, brought here so that they can be translators. That's as far as I'm gonna go. It's a very, very, very crazy story. There's a lot going on, but even though it's a bit slow towards the beginning, I will say those who can make it through, it is an amazing book to get to the ending and see how everything kind of comes together for Robin and his friends. So the fourth book that I read in August is The Attic Child by Lola J. So this book was also very good. I didn't mention it with Babel, but I gave Babel 5 stars because it was crazy. It was good. It took me there in every way that I needed to be taken. And this book did just the same thing. And I will say The Attic Child and Babel are like very similar. I think these books actually came out around the same time. Like, I don't know if the authors know each other. I don't know if you guys studied together, or if you thought like, hey, we have similar stories. Like, what? Okay. Not the same as in these books have the same stories, but they are very similar in origin, just because like in The Attic Child, we follow a child who was taken from the Congo by a white explorer. So in Babel, we have a child that came from Canton who was taken from his home by a professor. And both the professor and the explorer in these separate books take these children from their homeland, you know, not at their own will, and bring them to Europe. They bring them to England specifically so that they can learn, so that they can become very distinguished Englishmen. Both of these white men do the same thing. This is done to an African child, but in that book it is done to an Asian child. And we can't deny that this is something that has happened and does still happen today. And to put in a minor plug, those 2 books reminded me about one of my favorite books ever, and that book is Washington Black. So Washington Black is a extremely similar narrative to those 2 books, as we follow a young man who is on a slave plantation, Washington Black, who is also scooped up by a white explorer who, you know, uses this child as a assistant to pretty much follow him across the world and travel and learn and do all these things. And this explorer, that professor, all three of these white men are so astounded. They're so amazed. They see it as a phenomenon that these young children of color can actually learn and comprehend and talk and actually be smart and intelligent and offer some type of like substance to the relationship that they have. They are like, whoa. And they use these children to further their benefits of life. But yeah, it reminded me of this book. It ends in so many different ways, but it starts in the same way. But yeah. So back to The Attic Child. So in The Attic Child, we are following this young boy by the name of Dikembe, and he lives in the Congo. And he's living there with his father and his mom and his 4 brothers. He's the youngest, and he's so ready to go out in the woods and work with his father and his brothers and become a man, but he does love spending time with his mom. And he witnesses some things that make him very confused when he encounters his brother and his father engaging with white men. Never seen a white man before. These are like the early 1900s. This is like 1902 or 1903, where we have this young man living in the Congo with his family. So they've never seen white people, and you know, he's just like, whoa. And one day his mom apparently has to give him away to this white man who is to take him to England, and he is to train him in the way of becoming a gentleman, a distinguished Englishman. And Dikembe is very confused. He's like, what's going on? Like, I don't want to leave my home. I don't want to leave my mom. Like, why am I being sent away? But eventually he has to go, and he does go, and he does become very distinguished. He is the only black person in this town where this explorer lives, and they live in this beautiful home. And the explorer lets him know, hey, you're not here to like be a slave or a servant or anything like that. You are here to be my companion. I'm here to teach you all the ways of academics and all the ways of being a gentleman. That's what you're here for. So be a great guy. But apparently, to become a great guy, Dikembe has to change. And he starts off with his name being changed. And the explorer changes his name to Celestine. So he has now become Celestine Babington of Europe. And so now he has this new name, which he is very uncomfortable with, and he is becoming this new person. So as the story goes on, because I do not want to give away any spoilers, Celestine ends up in the attic, upstairs, locked away in the attic. Boom. So then, like, maybe 60 or 70 years later, we are following Laura, who is the current young child living in this home. Both her parents are gone. Like, she loses her mom passes away, and then her father also passes away very tragically and suddenly. And she ends up also in the attic. Laura is 70 years later going through the same experience that Celestine is going through in the attic. And there is a dual narrative where we're following both of them while they're in the attic, but also after the attic, also before the attic, like learning the stories of these two people and how they kind of like congeal and how their lives kind of like crash into each other. It's really, really a heavy story to read because these children are extremely confused as to why they are dealing with the issues that they're dealing with, being kidnapped or being abused or just being hurt and spoken to in ways that they can't understand, or being gaslit, just so that adults can have control over children in a way that they shouldn't, in a way that is uncompassionate, in a way that shows no concern for the future of these children and how they are suffering under the foolishness of adults who are demons, okay? Demons. But the writing is beautiful, and these children do see very beautiful moments of joy. The story does end on a really, really good note. I don't want to give it away. Give it a read. It shines a light on certain things that we all need to feel so that we can keep that strong feeling of empathy. There are children that need to be helped, and if we do just speak with them, if we do take out the time to say, hey, do you need anything? Do you need help? They won't end up stuck in the attic for years. But yeah, 5 stars. Like, this book was amazing. I loved it. The writing is beautiful. Can't wait to read more from this author, but devastatingly crazy. Okay, so I quickly just wanted to talk about the few books that I have on my TBR list that I plan on reading for the month of September. So the first book that I plan on reading during September is The Other Black Girl by Zakiya Harris. This book I've had for a while. I've had this book since it came out, and I'm pretty sure it's been like a year, maybe 2 years. Haven't read it. And a lot of people have talked about this book, and there have been mixed reviews once again. A lot of people didn't like it. A lot of people did like it. People haven't read it because there's been so many mixed reviews. I'm a part of that list because I was just like, I don't want to get into it with y'all. I'll read it when I want to. The only reason that I'm reading this book now is because it has been adapted to the screen. So because this book is now going to be on television, which I think it's on TV now. I think it was released like yesterday or something like that. But because it's on television now, and I am a very visual person, I love when like a book becomes a show or a movie. And I was just like, oh, y'all about to make that a show? Oh, a show? I got the book. Definitely gonna read this, and I feel like it's not that long, so I should be able to read this in like a few days and then hop on Apple TV, which I don't have a subscription to. If anybody wants to give me a subscription to Apple TV, I am here for it. I will not turn down your offer because he does not make enough money to keep paying for every app that shows something. No. So I heard that this book is about 2 black women working in corporate America, dealing with being the other black girl. I don't know anything else about the book. I usually don't like to know a lot about a book before I go into it because it's a story. I just want to kind of like experience it. So I will be reading this. I will have a review. I will tell you guys what it's about. If you read the book, tell me your rating in the comments, and we'll see if, you know, our vibes are matching up because I'm going to read this. I'm probably going to start it today. The Other Black Girl. The second book that I want to read in September is The Changeling by Victor Lavelle. I've also had this book for a long time. I think I've had this book for about 2 or 3 years, and I haven't read it yet. That's kind of crazy because from what I understand, this is a horror book, or it's kind of like in that thriller realm. And I love horror. I love thrillers. I love anything that's giving like creepy, scary vibes. And I know that I should have read this a long time ago, but I'm going to read it now. Why? Because this is also another book that has been adapted into a screen situation. I'm not sure if it's a movie or if it's a show, but I know that it's out. It's already out. I think it's a show. I don't know, but it's out already. And I feel like, dang, I should have read this a long time ago so I can like be a part of it. But also, let's talk about how there are like multiple movies or shows or whatever about the Changeling story. So like there was a movie that came out with Angelina Jolie where she lost her child and people were just like, you don't got no child, you know, whatever. And it was the whole Changeling thing. And there's the Changeling story about like having a baby and your baby being like kidnapped by like a gremlin or a goblin or a fairy or a ghoul, or, you know, and then switching out the baby for like a gremlin or a goblin or a ghoul, and they take your child down to the underworld or whatever those stories are. We've heard it many times. I've never read this story by a black author, and it's like an all-black cast-ish. So yeah, I heard that, you know, it was coming out, saw that I had this book on my shelf, and I was like, all right, perfect time. So I'm gonna read this, and I'm gonna read the other book, and those books will be read, and then those shows shall be watched. So again, if you guys have read this, because this is fairly old, I believe, not old, but it's a seasoned book. If you've read this, please leave in the comments and let me know what your rating was and if you liked it, and let me know if you've watched the show or the movie, and then we can talk. We can go back and forth. We can have a little dialogue about that. The next book that I plan on reading in September is The Sweetness of Water by Nathan Harris. I know absolutely nothing about this book. However, this book is all over the place. Everyone has posted a picture of this book. And I mean, of course, the cover is nice. I like this. It looks like a bunch of flames and stuff. And come on now. Oprah's book club. Like, most of the time, if it's in Oprah's book club or anybody really big, you know, the book is good. And I love books. Gonna read it regardless, but I have no idea what this is about. I haven't even read this little inside part here. It's quickly talking about the Civil War, Emancipation Proclamation, someone named Isabel, the Walkers, there's a parallel story, Confederate soldiers. Okay, there are things going on and I have no idea what it is, but I'm going to read this in September and I hope that I have a 5-star review for you guys. Who knows? But the sweetness of water. The last book, the very last book on my list for this video is Let's Go Swimming on Doomsday by Natalie Anderson. So I've had this book also for a while. I actually got this book used off of Amazon, and it used to be a library book. That's fun, right? Yeah, but I think I paid like $5 for this book, which I implore everyone that loves to read books, but you just don't always have the budget to buy a ton of books. Used books, they come out just as nice. Look at that. This is nice. Look at that. This is nice. This ain't nothing wrong with this book. And it was originally $19, but I paid about $5 for it because someone else got what they needed from it and then they gave it to me. So, you know, used books, why not? Get a book. But yeah, I also have no idea what this book is about. You guys know I'm gonna say that. I'm gonna say that about every book, unless it's already been like a very trendy thing going on where everybody's talking about it. But this, I have no idea what this is about. We do see that there is a young man on the front. He is wet. They are talking about swimming on Doomsday. Doomsday is the word that's giving me the vibes of crazy. And I hope that this book is crazy because I love a crazy book. That's what you're gonna get from this page. So if you haven't yet, go ahead and subscribe because it's gonna be crazy. 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 But yeah, Let's Go Swimming on Doomsday. It's a 16-year-old named Abdi. He's going through some things. I'm not gonna read this. When I watch people's videos and they end up reading, sometimes I'm just like, okay, I'll listen. Don't want to hear you read. Honestly want to hear what you're going to say about the book so I can then in turn go and read. Don't stop reading because of me. I'm just one person out here with an opinion. But yeah, so this book will be read. It looks a bit thick. I feel like I will enjoy it. If you have read this book, once again, please in the comments go and tell me what you think. Your rating should be there as well. We'll see what's going on with this young man and all this water, and I hope that he doesn't drown. I hope that Doomsday doesn't end up being doomy for him. So it has been fun. I've been clinking my rings. I've been sitting in front of this very hot light. And I've also been talking to you guys about books, which I really do love to do. I love books and I've been enjoying my journey reading. I've been trying to read a lot more lately because life is lifing. It's always good to sit back and have time to read a book. And I've been doing that. And I hope that you guys have been reading as well. The time has come to say goodbye. So hit the like button, subscribe. I will see you guys later.